Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my shop. Today is February 5th and it's my weekly shop update. So first off, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who took the time to watch the Q&A and leave some awesome comments. I got a lot of great feedback on that. I still have to go back and go through all the comments still, but what I have seen has been very positive, and I just wanted to say that just being able to, just people telling me that they like what I'm doing helps a lot. And sometimes all I hear, the negative voices, they tend to scream louder than the positive ones. So the overwhelming positivity definitely is uplifting. So last week after I posted that, I came down with a stomach flu. So I was like out for a day or so, and then our nanny was out for a few days last week too. So it was kind of a goofy week for me at least. So in the shop, I was working on getting the drawers finished up for the Highboy, getting a lot of stuff moved inside. I do have a couple more drawers on the Highboy to finish up. I have the carved drawers, which I have to do the cleanup work on the carving still, and then those will be ready to go. But there is a lot less Highboy stuff in the shop right now than there ever has been, and most of it's in the house. So let's head into the house and take a look at what that thing looks like right now. So check this thing out. This is pretty massive. So although it's not totally done, like the whole drawer front facade isn't totally there yet, at least at this point I can get a really good idea finally of the final appearance of this thing, with both pieces stacked together, with the transition frame and molding installed, and just have it standing in a room and just being able to stand next to it and just take it all in, because it's a very different piece of furniture when you're just looking at the two pieces individually, but when you stack them together, things really just, it just gives it a whole new light and a whole new look. And I'm just super thrilled with the way this thing turned out. I think it's just absolutely fantastic. But yeah, it's big. So the other thing I added this week, besides getting everything in here and getting this frame and molding all finished up and installed, are the backboards. The backboards, I used some of that birch that I had sawn in the summer, that from the old logs video. That stuff is absolutely beautiful. It has some really nice pinks and just some other really cool colors, but I really like the pinks a lot. The backboards themselves I got from just two boards, so there's four of them now, and I've double book matched them, so the book match seam is right down the center. So the two center boards are book matched, and then the two outside boards are book matched to each other as well. So it's a very small detail, but if you were looking at the back of the case, I think it looks pretty cool. Now I'll use exactly the same boards from those same logs for the drawer bottoms. I think those are going to be pretty cool as well. I went with the birch as opposed to the hard maple I've used throughout the rest of the project as a secondary wood, simply because I ran out of hard maple and I ain't going to go buy any. That's crazy. But I think the birch is going to be a nice third wood. It's beautiful, and I think it adds a little bit of more visual interest to some of the lesser seen things, because you're not going to see the back that often, but when you do, it'll be something cool to see. You're not going to see the drawer bottoms too often, especially once you get some stuff in the drawers. But again, once you pull out those drawers and they happen to be empty, you get a pleasant surprise that this is some nice wood at the bottom of these drawers. So I've received a bunch of questions on this saw that I just got. First off, this is a metal cutting bandsaw, and how it differs from your typical wood cutting bandsaws is basically, there's some other things on here, but the biggest thing is the blade speed. So on your normal bandsaws, those are going to run at 3, 4, 5,000 feet per minute. That's how fast the blade is traveling. This one tops out, I think, at 200 and it's under 250 feet per minute. So much slower. It's able to cut harder materials. And what makes these saws so nice is that they are self-feeding. So there is this hydraulic piston back here that you can adjust how fast it lets the head down. So the head feeds itself through the work, so as you're cutting, you can put it in here, turn the saw on, and when it finishes the cut, the saw automatically turns off. So this saw is actually a mitering bandsaw, so it'll actually spin, and you can pivot the head to make your angled cuts. There are other metal cutting saws like this, but they're just a standard horizontal saw where the head does not move. You have to angle the vise to be whatever angle you like that cut at. I decided to spring for the mitering feature. just because I figure this would be a lot nicer to use than your standard one where you have to change the vise, because that's how it is on my chop saw right now. The head doesn't move, we have to change the vise, and that's kind of annoying. And because I bought this saw solely because I wanted a better experience with cutting metal, I figured that anything to make that experience better, including a mitering head, would be worth it. This also has a built-in stop, so you can set a stop block for repeating a bunch of cuts that are the same. And I'll just load a piece of square tube in here. So I have to set my depth a little bit still, but it kind of gives you the idea. So this thing also has a coolant pump if you want to use coolant for your cuts. I probably won't because I don't want to deal with the mess. I don't cut that much stuff anyway. And one last thing on this is you can also tip it up so it's a vertical bandsaw. So if you wanted to do some cutting, however, there's a table somewhere. Where did I put that? There it is. This table's bolts onto here, and then you have your typical vertical bandsaw for making whatever kind of freehand cuts you want to make. So, things to be pretty handy for any metal cutting work that I have to do in the future. So on the waterfall tables this week, I did all of the rough epoxy filling, or the initial epoxy filling, just to get everything kind of situated and ready to go. So the ash slab had a pretty good amount of cracking towards the top here and just a few down there. Nothing too crazy on this one. Ugh. And then the two elm crotches, the smaller one just had some small cracks to fill, nothing too crazy there. But this big one, this one had some serious stuff going on. So right through here, this whole section here had cracked and then shifted back, or this part here is shifted forward. But there's a step here between the inside part of this crotch and then the outside bit of the wood. So this required a lot of epoxy to fill up this whole area. And something that differently on this one that I wanted to try was, instead of using masking tape to hold back the epoxy, I mixed up a really thick batch of epoxy that was almost like paste. And I applied that to the underside first, let that set up to create an actual seal on the bottom, and then poured epoxy into the top. And that worked out really well actually, and I think in the future I'll probably do that on some larger voids that I need to kind of dam up. It's a lot more prep work before you can actually start doing the actual filling, and a little more wasteful because all that's going to get removed anyway. But for something like this where you have such a big void to fill, you don't have to worry about the epoxy pouring out of the bottom at all. So it's kind of nice. So I'm also working on a quick little project here. These are some serving trays or like cheese boards or whatever. These were some firewood that I was going to put in the fireplace, but they looked too good to go in there. So I pulled them out. This one still needs to dry a little bit, so it's sitting around for a little bit. I thought it'd be fun to do a quick project, both for my sanity and for, well, to have some kind of projects for you guys to see. This is some elm that I cut last year from the smaller logs pile. It's got some kind of burly things going on there, so I think these are going to make some pretty nice little, serving trays. Nice thing about these is they're quick to make and they make really good gifts. And I'm kind of running out of things for gifts. So on the few occasions a year we go places where we need to bring something, there we go. A couple more of those. So that's what's going on in my shop this week. Let's take a look at some viewer projects. First this week is a Birch coffee table by Andrew. Andrew made this table as a Christmas present for his parents to go in their cabin in northern Minnesota. He says he was attracted to using birch because the forest around their cabin had a lot of large birch trees and he had never worked with birch before. Next is Gaudi's Throne for Ginger by Paul. I'm assuming that's some kind of reference to something that I don't know. Paul had a piece of curly cherry left over from a failed attempt at a houndstooth dovetail waterfall table. which was well sized for a chair. The whole project took a month of evenings and weekends to complete. Next is a C-shaped table by Dan. It's made from air-dried hickory and walnut from a local sawyer. This was Dan's first Morrison tenon and first mitered waterfall green table. Dan also has a video over on his YouTube channel that shows the entire process of making this table, so definitely check that out. Last this week are a set of Torii arch tables by Brian. These are made from sapele and finished with wipe-on polyurethane. I have to say, having all of the space over here, it's kind of weird and kind of nice at the same time. Like I walked in the door today and I just walked straight across here and all the way through, and it was like a straight walk. It wasn't like a walk and like side shift and turn thing, so it's weird, but in a good way. So this week I'll be starting on the outfeed table. I'm taking the slab out of here, bringing it from here over to the workbench area, getting the voids filled, getting it prepped, because I'll be doing the flattening on this slab at the same time I'll be doing the flattening on the other ones, so I don't have to make a mess once. So that's kind of the plan for this week, is to kind of get things finished up on the Highboy a little more and get the waterfall tables flattened. So that's what I'll be working on this week. Cool. So I think that's about all I have for this week. Thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments about anything I talked about today or anything here in my shop, please feel free to leave me a comment, as well as to be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.